Hey everybody, how's it going? Today is May 19th. Hope you're enjoying your weekend so far. My name is Derek. In this video, I'm going to talk about the deaths of 3 celebrities from this past week. First, we'll touch on the death of Isaac Kappy, a 42-year-old actor who was said to have jumped off a bridge before being hit by a car and killed. We're also going to look at former WWE star Ashley Massaro, a winner of the 2005 Diva Search competition, who was found dead this week, apparently from a suicide. Lastly, we'll look at the death of Austin Eubanks, who was a survivor of the Columbine school shooting, who is said to have been found dead on Saturday. And this man here is just the latest in a string of many people who were survivors of school shootings who are said to have been found dead. Whether it's a suicide or a drug overdose, it's not totally clear yet. This man was known to have some issues with substance abuse, particularly opioid addictions, before this. So in my videos, I talk about the language of numerology with a focus on Gematria, also pronounced Gematria, which is the ancient practice rooted in Hebrew and Greek traditions of coding numbers into words. And this practice is very simple. While my website does offer many ciphers, most of those are considered experimental. We do know that these most significant ciphers, the most basic ones, built off of the standard alphabetic order, and Pythagorean gematria, which uses the rules of numerology to give us our reduction ciphers, we know that these are very significant. And throughout this video, we'll also be touching on the Jewish or Latin gematria cipher, shown on the right side of your screen. This cipher is structured more similarly to Hebrew gematria and Greek isopsephy, produces much larger numbers, and we'll see how these are relevant as we go. Now, it's my contention that many of these celebrities are being potentially murdered by the numbers. Now, me personally, I don't know that. It's a claim I make just based on the fact that so many of these deaths are suspicious. And celebrities die at young ages at a far, far, far higher rate than does the general population. Of course, I do also understand that we do live in somewhat of an organic or a divine matrix. And people in our own personal lives seem to be dying by this code as well. So ultimately, what I believe about what this code reveals isn't the most important since I don't totally know everything about it. Regardless, these patterns are very, very easy to find. These synchronicities between the numeric values of names, dates, certain phrases, and then dates on the calendar, whether we're looking at the date numerology itself or the duration between dates. There is no doubt significant alignments in all of these deaths. One that I think really need to be better understood before we can truly understand what we're living in. Because if these all are organic deaths, and, a part of me wonders how they continue to get away with saying that so many people commit suicide. You would think that if anyone in these families of these people knew anything about the person, they would know that suicide might have been impossible. But again, it does appear that some of these people are being killed. And we'll talk about this murder by numbers code as it appears. The other competing theory is that the Bible, where we get the story of crucifixion darkness during the crucifixion of Jesus, under an event perceived by many to be a solar eclipse. Just look at this. This painting that they give us, Christ on the Cross. Notice how this painting was crafted in 1870. And in the reverse alphabetic order, the phrase total eclipse equals 187. Of course, an eclipse often occurs exactly one metonic cycle after a previous eclipse. This sums to 197, and notice how they mentioned 197 could have been the year of a portent that occurred during the crucifixion. So this language of letters and numbers rooted in the Bible and is very clear and present when we look at the gematria of these celebrities. So let's start with Isaac Kappy, who was not a terribly famous actor, was from Albuquerque, New Mexico, which was the site of the television series Breaking Bad, which he actually did have a cameo on in one episode. And we'll talk about how this ties into the Albuquerque eclipse of 2023 in a second. First, I want you to notice one interesting alignment between Isaac Kappy's name and his birthday. Using the reduction method with the S exception, the name Isaac Kappy sums to 48. This man was born on the date February 17th, which, as you'll see here on the Gregorian calendar, is the 48th day of the year. When you're studying numerology, you need to understand how important prime number relationships are. The number 48 is connected to 223 because 223 is the 48th prime number. Now, 223 is a significant number with total solar eclipses, and any eclipse for that matter. One of the most important cycles to understand is the Saros cycle, which is a period of 223 lunar phases. And we get an eclipse of the same Saros series once every 223 lunar phases. Now, in the language of Gematria, the show Breaking Bad sums to 223. And this is significant because Breaking Bad takes place in Albuquerque, New Mexico, not a very populated city compared to the rest of the nation. 223 is the Hebrew gematria of the moon. And there's 223 lunar phases between eclipses. Isaac Kappy was born in the year 1977, which means that on the date he died, he was 2,203 weeks old. And again, this man did star in Breaking Bad for one episode. He played a prisoner on that episode. Notice how prisoner also gives us a numeric value of 48 in reverse. So as we mentioned, Breaking Bad equals 223, and it takes place in Albuquerque. And in the year 2023, there will be an annular solar eclipse. The center of the path of this eclipse travels directly over the city of Albuquerque. The date on which Isaac Kappy died at 2,203 weeks old, if you measure from the most recent total solar eclipse, which was the Great American Eclipse, back in 2017, you find that he died a span of 20 months and 23 days after that solar eclipse. Now, the part that sticks out about this story is that he jumped off of a bridge, and it didn't look like he jumped into a lake. He jumped off a bridge and then was hit by a car. Wild stuff. Now, if you measure to this eclipse, the one that passes over Albuquerque, New Mexico, this one takes place on the date October 17th of 2023. Actually, I'm sorry, the date of that eclipse is the 14th of October. And you can always verify this data yourself. You can go to XJubier. They have a solar eclipse database. So as you look up here, October 14th, 2023, is the annular eclipse that travels directly over Albuquerque and the southwestern United States. Now, the date on which his death made news was the next day, May 14th. Notice how his death made news exactly 4 years and 5 months before this eclipse. And we're being told that he jumped off a bridge, which has this gematria of 45. Speaking of the moon, we talked about how the moon sums to 223 in Hebrew, the number of months in the Saros cycle. The moon travels 57 degrees around the ecliptic, and the word moon has a gematria value of 57. Isaac Kappy's death fell on a date with full numerology of 57. Also notice the 21, which is the reduction value of moon. And this death occurred right outside of Flagstaff, Arizona, which, when abbreviated, has this 57 as well. And also notice the 192. For good measure, that's the Jewish gematria of the word eclipse, 192. There's one more really interesting set of numbers with Isaac Kappy. If we look at his birth date, February 17th of 1977, notice how we get full numerology of 115. In the reverse alphabetic order, the word killing equals 115, the same sum as we get in Jewish gematria. You may also notice the 43, his birth date, also with numerology of 43, the life lesson number. Now, in the alphabetic order, killing equals 74. This is the numeric value of Jesus, who died on the cross. This story was told in the Gospels. And wouldn't you know it, Breaking Bad, in that same ordinal method, the most basic cipher sums to 74. In Jewish gematria, total solar eclipse has this 704 value. But notice how on the date of the 2023 annular eclipse, Isaac Kappy would have been exactly 17,040 days old. So we get a 704 in his age on the date of the Albuquerque eclipse. Not only that, but he would also be a span of 7 months and 4 weeks after his birthday. So it's not very frequent where you get a double alignment like that. But it's pretty interesting that he would have had a double 74 in his age on the date of the Albuquerque eclipse. This man born in Albuquerque, starred in the series, featured in Albuquerque. To dive further into the crucifixion code riddle, it's believed that Jesus was crucified at age 33, or even in the year 33 during an eclipse. The word eclipse equals 33. The phrase crucifixion of Jesus Christ equals 303. And notice how in Jewish gematria, 33 has this value of 895. This is the same as ritual human sacrifice. And we continue to see that human sacrifice, or at least death, is very closely associated with eclipses. And the name Isaac, in ordinal, sums to 33, just like eclipse. Also notice the 39. Isaac equals 39, so does Isaac Kappy, 39. The word eclipse equals 39. Also notice how the name or the word eclipse equals 69 in ordinal. The name Kappy, 69, same method. This number 69 also has a little bit more meaning, I think, here. I think it's this version of the word sacrifice in Hebrew. No. I think it might have been the first one I had. Let's see. This always catches me up. They recently changed the word that appears first for sacrifice. Oh, brother. Well, I have it captured here. Sacrifice, summing to 347 in Hebrew. This is the 69th prime number. Which word is it? I'll have to come back to this one, guys. Either way, you see how eclipses and sacrifices are all coded together. One more thing worth mentioning is that Isaac Kappy died on the 86th day of his age. This is the value of blood sacrifice, human sacrifice, 86. 86, of course, slang for offing or getting rid of somebody. So that's one celebrity. Very clear alignments to eclipses, his numerology. And by the way, I did mention 48 in Isaac Kappy. He was born on the 48th day of the year. 48th prime is 223. The next Great American Total Solar Eclipse, by the way, which is the year after that in 2024, occurs on the date 4/8. All right, so moving on. The next semi-celebrity who passed away this past week was WWE Divas champion Ashley Massaro. Again, she was the winner of the 2005 edition of Diva Search. So again, numerology associated with total solar eclipses, the story of the death of Jesus. Ashley Massaro was born on May 26, 1979. Notice how she was born on the 146th day of the year. In the reverse alphabetic order, the name Jesus Christ has this value of 146. When Ashley died on May 16th this past week, she was exactly 14,600 days old. And it's also worth mentioning that the day she was born leaves 219 days in the year, and here now she's passed away in the year 2019 at exactly 14,600 days old. Now, I just mentioned how 33, this number of sacrifice, the 895 overlapping gematria with ritual human sacrifice, and Judas, who betrayed Jesus, whose name sums to 985, all of this at age 33, like the word eclipse. May 16th had a life lesson number of 33, 5 plus 16, plus 2 plus 1 plus 9. This woman was a WWE diva, which has a value of 33. Also notice how she was both born in and died in New York. I noticed they just changed her birth city from New York to Babylon. Now, Babylon is interesting. That ties back to the Sumerian culture. More practitioners of Gematria. Anyway, New York has this value of 33 as well. Notice how they say she passed away in Smithtown, New York. Smithtown equals 141, which is the reverse value of 33. Now, here's something that's really interesting about this that really stuck out. So, Ashley Massaro was the winner of 2005's Diva Search. This was a contest that ran from 2003 to 2007. There was then one more recent Diva Search that was back in 2013. So after 6 years, the show came back for one season. And now look at this, 2019, 6 years later, they're announcing it again. And look at the date on which they announced the return of this series, January 25th of 2019. And look at this. This was exactly 3 months and 3 weeks before Ashley Massaro died. Now, this same measurement also converts to 15 weeks and 6 days. 33 equals 156 using the alphabetic order. So does the name Ashley Massaro. 156, alphabetic order. How strange is this? $156, by the way, in Hebrew Gematria, this is the value of the word eclipse. And this is because eclipses always occur either 1, 5, or 6 lunar phases apart from one another. Ashley Massaro was in World Wrestling Entertainment. Notice how this has a value of 156. And in Satanic Gematria, WWE equals 156. Ashley Massaro's full name was Ashley Marie Massaro. And notice how this sums to 202 in the alphabetic order. This is the same as total solar eclipse, 202. If you measure from the date that she died to the next total solar eclipse, which occurs on July 2nd, she died 47 days before that eclipse. The phrase total eclipse equals 47. A total eclipse, the most significant marker in time, which sums to 47. The sun, which the moon covers up during an eclipse, travels 47 degrees across the ecliptic. And this is so strange. You see this commonly. If you look at Ashley Massaro's Wikipedia page, notice how they have a picture from 2011. I mean, this is a pretty old picture by this point, about 8 years. Well, 2011 is, or 211, I should say, is the 47th prime number. And 211 is the value of ritual human sacrifice. We mentioned how the 895 ties in before, but also this 211. Again, 211, the 47th prime number, they're saying that she died from suicide. 47, killing also equals 47 with the K exception. Now, 47 is also a prime number. Notice how it's the 15th prime number. And Ashley Massaro is also known for having starred on Survivor China, which was the 15th season. Furthermore, Ashley Massaro wrestled in 2 different WrestleMania events, 23 and 24. And of course, 23 plus 24 is 47. The most recent WrestleMania was held on the date 4/7. And if you measure from that date to the date that she died, it was 39 days. And Ashley Massaro was 39 years old when she died. The word eclipse, again, summing to 39. Massaro's name also has another connection to 39. The name Ashley Marie Massaro sums to 991 in Jewish Gematria. Well, 991 is a prime number. It's the 167th prime number. And 167 is the 39th prime number. And now she's dead at the age of 39. And this is interesting, especially because we're going to talk about Austin Eubanks, this Columbine survivor. His name sums to 157, which is the 37th prime. And he's dead at the age of 37. So prime numbers never fail to show their significance. A couple more quick things on Ashley Massaro. Her last name equals 86. Remember that slang for getting rid of blood sacrifice, human sacrifice, 86. Another thing, too, is her initials, Ashley Massaro, AM, or 113. Her name also sums to 113, and she died 11 months and 3 weeks after her birthday. But really, this suicide lined up with the eclipse so perfectly. Special thanks to everybody who's jumping in on the live stream today. I kicked this video off talking a little bit about the organic matrix and how, I'm doing these videos really to wake people up to what's happening. And again, I'm not sure exactly what it is that's happening. I do feel like I have a great understanding now that we live in this organic or divine matrix and that our lives, our world is a result of our shared consciousness, and events in our lives continue to manifest by the numbers. To me, it's the best evidence of God or a creator. And yesterday, I made a video, a very odd video, but I credit some of the research to Falcor, a moderator here in my chat, got his own YouTube channel, and he was doing some work recently about the Kelvin scale and how it's being redefined through the 2019 redefinition of SI base units. And in that video, I talked about how the Kelvin scale was named after Baron Kelvin, whose contributions in the field of science were recognized by attributing the scale of temperature to his name. Well, his last name is Thompson, and I was talking about how the story about Tommy Robinson, a political activist, and getting milkshakes thrown on him was all a tribute to the Kelvin scale. And it's hard for me to really understand why they run news by the numbers like this. However, I have to leave the door open to the possibility that there's things that just happen organically. And maybe some of what we're decoding truly is just naturally occurring numerology. Well, I'd like to point out that Bobby got my attention this morning. He finally found out the name of a coworker who works in the cooler at his job. And the guy's name is frickin' Kelvin. So he said he's never met another Kelvin his entire life. And he meets one yesterday, the same day I make a video about the Kelvin scale. And the guy works in the cooler. And my story was about milkshakes and ice cream. Absolute zero, cold temperatures. The Kelvin scale, which begins at 0, which is the coldest possible temperature. So when I talk about the organic matrix and, numerology like that, the fact that that's even possible, and again, I've seen plenty of these things in my own life. My first video where I started talking about the number 227 for the first several slides, the notes I took for that video came from a phone call that lasted exactly 2 hours and 27 minutes to the second, and it ended at 7:22 a.m. With the guy I was talking to. So my point is that, I can only sit here and claim that people are getting murdered by the numbers. I don't know that. It certainly seems that way. But there is definitely something incredible going on when it comes to the organic matrix. And I feel like I would be doing this research a great grand injustice if I didn't mention these organic synchronicities occurring alongside us as we do this work. So with that being said, let's talk about another suspicious death. Again, this man, Austin Eubanks, was a survivor of the Columbine shooting. And we've seen this recently. The parent of a Sandy Hook victim committed suicide just a couple months ago. The survivor from Parkland, the Stoneman Douglas shooting, killed herself. I think we had another one from Columbine recently kill themselves. It's just out of control. And this is all about, our theory, the mainstream media, using mind control, just hammering the same thing over and over. And eventually people believe it, and people start to see the long-term effects of these shootings and how we need to do something about it. many shootings which I contend are manufactured or staged. So again, this man, Austin Eubanks, his name summing to 157, the 37th prime number, and now he's been found dead at age 37. Also notice how his name equals 40 in reduction. This man was a survivor of the Columbine shooting. Columbine equals 40 as well in that same method. But now we're going to talk about the very clear and present kill code as it appears in the numerology of Austin Eubanks. Now, this man doesn't have his own Wikipedia page, but he does have this My Life page. Seems to have a little bit of a bio on him. Talks about his past in Denver, Colorado. Of course, Columbine High School in Littleton, Colorado, a suburb of Denver. Notice how they call him Stephen Eubanks. And it turns out his real name is actually Stephen Austin Eubanks. So yet again, we get another mainstream media character who doesn't use his real name. I mean, I've only met like a couple of people in my life who go by their middle name, but we see this all the time in their news. So this guy, Stephen Eubanks, doesn't like his first name, goes by Austin. Who knows why? The name Stephen Austin Eubanks, in the alphabetic order, sums to 244. We're going to take another look at Hebrew Gematria, one that will be accurate this time, I assure you. And check out the Gematria of the word for kill. In Hebrew Gematria, the direct translation of the word kill equals 244. Again, Gematria, a practice rooted in Jewish mysticism, not necessarily associated with Judaism per se, but a practice that traces back to the culture. So his name in the alphabetic order, 244, just like the Hebrew value of kill. If you measure from the Columbine shooting, April 20th of 1999, to the date of this man's death, you get exactly 240 months and 4 weeks. And I hope you understand by now, zeros can be ignored. So what this represents is the number 244, the same number in his ordinal gematria, which is also the Hebrew value of kill. And this goes further. Notice how kill in Hebrew also sums to 19 in reduction. And this is no mistake. There seems to be clear alignments here between Hebrew and English. Notice how the number 19, when spelled out, equals 244 in Jewish gematria, just like kill. And I bring this up because not only is this news reaching the masses on the 19th day of the month in the year 2019, but the name Eubanks equals 19 in reduction. Now, in the English language, the word kill equals 44. The name Eubanks equals 44. The name Austin equals 440. And this is all in relation to the Columbine shooting. Shooting has this value of 44 as well. I believe it's execution 44, genocide 44. A number clearly associated with killing. So how interesting is this, right? His ordinal value matching up with the Hebrew value of kill. Each name summing to the same as the English value of kill. It all ties in perfectly to the date of the Columbine shooting, which he survived. So we looked at the kill code. What about the sacrifice code? There's a very, very, very clear riddle here as well. And this all begins with the date. May 18th, the day this man's body was found, 5 plus 18 plus 20 plus 19 equals 62. The word sacrifice equals 62. It also sums to 46, just like Littleton, Colorado, when abbreviated, the site of the Columbine massacre. And this man died a span of 46 days before the next total solar eclipse. It seems possible he died on the 17th. This is also 46 days without the end date. So we had a very clear sacrifice alignment with dates in the calendar also. Now notice how in the alphabetic order, sacrifice equals 73. The name Eubanks equals 73. He was found dead on the 18th of the month. 18 equals 73. And check out his full name, Stephen Austin Eubanks, also giving us 73 in reduction. This is the same as ritual sacrifice. And look at the reverse value of ritual sacrifice, 107. Look at the date they say this man was born, October 7th, or 10/7. Furthermore, Austin Eubanks gives us this 86. We've talked about this number, I think, in every post, haven't we? Isaac Kappy, dead on the 86th day of his age. Ashley Massaro passed away. Massaro equals 86 in ordinal. Well, now, Austin Eubanks equals 86, just like blood and human sacrifice. 86, the slang for getting rid of. Maybe this is also worth pointing out. May 18th equals 211, the date his body was found. This is the same as ritual human sacrifice. One more interesting thing. I mentioned the 46, right, from Sacrifice, Littleton, Colorado. Dead a span of 46 days before the eclipse. Well, the 46th prime number is 199, and I think it's interesting. Both Survivor has this 199 gematria. So does school shooting, 199. This man was a survivor of a school shooting. And check this out. School shooting survivor equals 116. Stephen Austin Eubanks equals 116. And look when CNN last updated their article. Granted, they may have updated it since I took the screen capture this morning at 11:16 a.m. or p.m. They have updated it recently this morning. But when I did the post, the timestamp was 11:16. Just like his name, just like school shooting survivor. Also notice how Eubanks equals 116. So does Littleton, the city in Colorado where Columbine exists. I wonder if there's anything to the time 9:17. I guess 9 hours would be 540 minutes. So 557 minutes into the day. That's the 102nd prime number. Didn't we just see a 102? No, not in this story. Well, sometimes the riddle is clear. Sometimes it's not so much. But up to this point, it's pretty obvious what they're doing with the numbers. Clear as day. So, I hope that was a decent breakdown of these deaths by the numbers this past week. Again, I don't know for sure who's being murdered. I don't know if any of these people are faking their deaths. For all we know, this could be a mix of all three. The Columbine shooting, as I recently said just a couple weeks ago, when I was decoding the shooting at UNC Charlotte, I talked about how at that shooting, they had students walk by broken glass. And it seems like they made it look like the shooter had broken in through the door. But by giving the students that scene, puts a little more reality behind the most likely fake shooting that existed that day. And in Columbine, you see similar tactics by law enforcement. They would rush kids past what looked like a dead body, but then seconds later, after the cops dragged the dead body aside, it looked very, very much like a dummy. So I believe the Columbine shooting could have been a staged hoax for all we know, or at least one that was perpetrated through a combination of MK Ultra, the military-industrial complex. And, this survivor of the shooting could have been an actor this whole time. I mean, this is a guy who, did talks all over the country, talking about his addictions, talking about recovering from school shooting and trauma. So this death, as far as I can tell, might be completely fake. I don't know. And I apologize if someone in his family knows him and it's real, but, it's possible he was murdered too. Then we have the death of Ashley Massaro. And, this one could be a murder by the numbers. Clearly by the Eclipse Crucifixion Code. We saw how WWE announced the series earlier this year, which was in perfect alignment with the date she died and all this stuff. So this one could be a real murder. And then maybe Isaac Kappy, who knows? This could be a real overdose or a real suicide. My point is that I believe it's a mix of all of these fake deaths, murders, and organic deaths that we're seeing. Again, regardless of which each case falls into categorically, you don't have to look very hard to find the numerical alignments. It's always tied into solar eclipses. It's always tied into the date they died and their name gematria. Usually their biggest career accomplishments too. And is it possible, guys, that maybe it's not the fact that solar eclipses are being attributed, but that solar eclipses are actually events that affect the reality of the matrix that we live in? And think about how it works. The moon itself is a very mysterious object. I do not believe at all that man traveled to the moon. I feel like NASA faked that back in the 60s. Of course, we've never been back to the moon in 50 years almost. Never been further than the moon. It's a scientific accomplishment that's way out of alignment with all other scientific accomplishments. And I think a lot of people understand now that NASA participates in a lot of tomfoolery, a lot of fakery, and a lot of what they give us is fake. So, the moon, when they have, on the other hand, they say that when they've launched probes into the moon, that the moon would vibrate like a gong. And, of course, the moon is not what they tell us it is. It's not a rock that's spun off from the Earth. The moon is a creation of some sort. I don't know if it's a spacecraft, some sort of hologram, but it's not a natural satellite as we have come to and grown to understand natural satellites as they would normally exist. So the fact that the moon is the perfect size to eclipse the sun, either in a fashion where the moon is larger than the sun and we get a total eclipse, or in the case of this annular eclipse that goes over Albuquerque in 2023, there the moon will be smaller than the sun and will not completely cover it up. And the fact that that is even possible blows my mind. The likelihood of that is literally 1 in millions. It's extremely, extremely uncommon on a grand scale. So that kind of points to the fact of creation to me. And, of course, I went to go see the total solar eclipse last year, or in 2017, I should say. Pretty amazing event. But I can't help but wonder if the moon is a creation, right? When it blocks out the sun, all of our life energy comes from the sun. Of course, we can also eat for energy, but you'd be amazed how much energy you can actually gain from the sun. And whether it's walking barefoot in grass or in sand, using that to increase your magnetic resonance with the earth. There's something very real about the sun and energy. Just ask sun gazers. NASA's done studies on sun gazers who don't eat. They simply just look at the sunrise and sunset. Seems like a very real thing. So here we get these events where the moon covers up the sun. And is it possible that when that happens, we're getting an injection of some sort? The mainstream media, these Satanists that run our world, no doubt this world is run by evil at the top of the chain. People who work very hard to suppress voices like myself who try to expose what's going on. And just mention these numeric alignments. Because they understand that when people see these numeric synchronicities, they will understand that we live in a matrix. And if it's possible that we live in a matrix, this speaks to the fact that we are not what they told us we are. We actually are connected to the world that we live in. We are not living independently of it. We are living as part of it. We are consciously changing the reality with what we focus on, with what we talk about, with what we put our energy into. That, to me, is the grand conspiracy of why they're suppressing this knowledge. So, like I said, is it possible that when these eclipses occur, these eclipses are actually what's responsible for injecting this computer virus into the earth? This virus then manifests itself into death and disease, manifests into evil, people lying, people scratching and clawing their way to the top through selfish means. Through many years of looking at this stuff and paying attention to my own life and whatnot, I think that's as legit of a theory as the idea that it's all Freemasonry controlling everything. Because the fact that these numeric alignments even exist kind of blows my mind. Like, I understand, that with computers you could choose the perfect date for anything, but, I find myself blowing my own mind with this research on an almost daily basis. And it's pretty trippy stuff. So, again, I've kind of been, I haven't been ignoring the chat. I've just been kind of sidetracked with what I'm talking about. A couple of interesting comments that just popped up. And shout out again to Zenith of the Alpha, one of my favorites. Done so much great work. A lot of my work centers around, a lot of his findings. I was talking about the sun and how important it is to soak up the sun's energy and how it can actually replace food for some people. Now, when I was in middle school, there was a song called Sunscreen, and for some reason, this was a really, really popular song, and they played it on the radio like crazy. They hammered it into our heads in school, and the song starts by saying, "Wear sunscreen." And the whole thing is about the scientific effects of sunscreen being proven by scientists and whatnot. And look, like I said, I believe this world is Satan's kingdom. It's not necessarily one of God. It's one that God allows his people to operate and flourish in, but it's certainly not run by his people. And if there is a grand conspiracy for depopulation, again, it's not going to be achieved through rounding people up and putting them in FEMA camps. It's going to instead be achieved by establishing organizations like the CDC, certain medical establishments telling us what's healthy, what we can be putting in our bodies, what we shouldn't be. Doesn't it make sense that sunscreen, applying a lot of lotion to you, could be bad for you? So people who are brainwashed into thinking that they're getting cancer because they're getting sunburn, well, maybe that happens. Maybe you do need to regulate your time in the sun. But putting a chemical in all the pores of your body doesn't sound healthy to me. And I always kind of felt weird about it. I still do wear sunscreen on occasion if I'm going to be out in the sun for a very long time. But if I go out to catch some sun, I do not wear sunscreen, and I don't believe anybody should for, it's like eating red meat, right? You do so occasionally with discipline, and it's probably not going to hurt you. Someone else said something here. Everything is mind and consciousness. All occult philosophers say this. And I think this is kind of an overlooked part of this research. I'm reading a book called The Divine Matrix by Greg Braden, and this book is really interesting. Now, a lot of you may be familiar with the concept of quantum entanglement, the idea that two previously intertwined particles will behave similarly, and these behaviors transcend the speed of light. This all happens instantaneously, which means that our reality is not bound by space-time as we understand it. And this means essentially that our universe is holographic. And if the Big Bang Theory is true, this makes sense. If everything was at one point condensed into virtually no space, in order for that to expand, that space must still be connected by something. And it's the belief of occult philosophers and even some scientists now who are, maybe getting better at understanding their experiments and opening their minds, that the reality we perceive and live in is really just one of shared consciousness. That is to say, we do not exist independently of the world. This world exists because of our consciousness. It's a creation of our minds. And I believe this is totally true. Again, I don't believe that the organic synchronicities that have occurred in my life would have happened if we are just random particles of stardust that fell together, began breathing, began speaking, began to become self-aware. There's too many perfect things that happened in order for that to occur. Thank you for the kind words. I'm just someone who am interested in this, and feels like this needs to be brought to light. And I feel gifted that I'm able to do this. And, there's a lot more YouTube channels that get more than 70 viewers watching live, but I feel very blessed that I'm able to share this information and point people to what I believe is this divine matrix. When I was young, I was lucky enough to find God and feel like I had a higher purpose in life. And there's a lot of people struggling in this day and age to discover their purpose. And I guess what I'm trying to get at with numerology is telling everybody that there's a design here. We're here for a reason. We do have a purpose. It's just a matter of discovering it. And by giving in, so to speak, to the fact that you are part of something greater inside of this matrix, things will begin to manifest themselves for you. And it just seems to be how it works. As far as when I'm going to write a book, well, writing a book is a huge investment I'm not ready to make yet. I feel like it'll be necessary by the end of all of this because I want to share my journey and my path from being someone who was confused and lost in their reality, being in my 20s, late 20s even, not knowing what was going on, understanding that there was some layer of conspiracy, but not at all having an understanding of what reality is and how it speaks to us. And my path through the numbers, through Gematria. Of course, it was only after I built this calculator, I should say, that I discovered that my name equals 142, just like Gematria. Of course, Gematria is numbers, which sums to the same as my first name, and it combines this with letters, which sums to the same as my last name. So there's something very mystical about this. And some people shy away from the word mysticism for some reason. But it's important to understand that that is exactly what we're looking at, is ancient mysticism. And we've never been able to see it so clearly before this calculator. And I'm not here to pat myself on the back. I built this because I knew I was called to do it. And having this window now into this other layer of reality has just opened up a wealth of doors for myself and many other people who follow my research. And it's pretty amazing stuff. Yeah, someone mentioned Buzz Aldrin's mom's name was Moon, and that's true. That's crazy. I'm going to look this up and show you some more interesting numbers. Let's see. I wonder if it even mentions his mom's name. Gosh, I want to say her name was like Marjorie Moon or something. Buzz Aldrin's mom. Somebody type it in if they know. If they know his mom's name. Marion Moon, that's right. So here we have a 33rd degree Freemason, Buzz Aldrin, a man who has been lying his entire life, saying that he's walked on the moon. His mother's maiden name just happens to be Marion Moon. So Marion Moon equals 127 and 55. The most significant cycle of time associated with the moon is the Metonic cycle. This is a period of 19 years that syncs up almost exactly with 235 lunar phases. The phrase Metonic cycle also summing to 127 and 55. In Hebrew, moon equals 38. Marion Moon equals 380. Check out the name Marion. It sums to 210, which is the same as moon in English Gematria, 210. Marion also 38, just like I mentioned. Yeah, so I guess I'll try to write a book before too long. Red meat cancerous? Well, I mean, I know people who have eaten red meat just about every day of their life who lived really, really old and healthy lives. So, I'm just not on board with saying one type of food is cancerous and poisonous and all these others are fine. A lot of it has to do with how much exercise you get. If you're sweating those toxins out of your body, that has a lot to do with it. If you can avoid mosquito spray, definitely do that. Again, I say moderation is key, but really that stuff should be kept out of your body because if you inhale it, then it's really bad for you. When it comes to sports, a lot of people use sports for proof or lack of proof of this code. You notice I don't talk about sports very often in my videos. I don't get into sports predictions. I don't enjoy trying to predict sports. I think sometimes we spot riddles with sports and are able to pick out champions ahead of time. But sometimes they're wrong, So there's definitely something going on with it, but I don't really think, that's the thing. It's like Zach's not scamming people out of money with the sports picks, I don't think. Because he is over 500. Like, if you bet the same on every game, you'll win a little bit of money. And there are people who are using it to win money. What I want people to understand is that far fewer people, just a handful of people, are making good money off of betting on sports on a consistent basis. To me, you're still gambling. This is still all about Vegas. The games might not all be rigged, but they can be. And if there's too much money on a game, they'll switch it up. Like I said, I could do a whole other video about why I don't really care about sports so much, because I totally believe that if the games are real, things would manifest by the numbers anyway. I played for a while. I've been playing the game Rocket League, right, which is a game with you play soccer with cars. Essentially, it's on PlayStation, Xbox, PC. The number of times where a crazy goal will get scored and it'll be like 2-1 with 2 minutes and 1 second left in the game. That kind of thing happens all the time, guys. my point is that even in games I've played, sports I've played, there's always numbers popping out at me. And if everything that happens in sports is rigged, down to the second, down to the 10th of a second sometimes, down to the yard, then that's even more impressive than, an actual athletic competition. If two vegans have an argument, is it still called a beef? Oh, man, you made my weekend. Thank you for that. As far as water, if you can buy a water distiller, that's a good investment. Most cities' water supplies have fluoride, which I try to stay away from. And I'm definitely not on the vegan train. I mean, if you guys want to do that, that's fine, but make sure you do it right, because I won't be giving that a crack. Another thing, too, I always see this argument from vegans and vegetarians. Do you crave to eat living animals? And I don't know if they're trying to make me feel guilty about it. Well, look, guys, animals die, too. And doesn't it seem blasphemous to just let the animal rot into the world and let all that energy go to waste? You can't use a moral justification on me against eating meat. Like, I don't drink milk, okay, because I don't agree with how cows are kept in their conditions and milked their whole lives. Every chance I get, I try to eat grass-fed, open-range beef, which you could still argue against, but, at least those animals are living decent lives. The conditions for which animals are kept in for milking is abhorrent, and I won't support that industry. However, by buying beef occasionally, I guess I do, in a roundabout way, still support the industry. I'm not perfect, but again, you got to pick your battles sometimes in this crazy world. You got to stay sane. And as far as burning calories, guys, let me share a quick video with you. Something that very few people know about me is that I actually used to be an aficionado of rhythm games. So when I was in high school, I started gaining weight my freshman and sophomore year. I was up to 173 pounds about at one point. Well, in my junior year in high school, which was actually the last year I spent in high school, I found a game called Dance Dance Revolution. And I played it, we just started getting the arcade machines in our area when I was 16. I bought the home pad for it, ended up getting pretty good, started getting good enough to play in tournaments, and I actually traveled around with friends around the Midwest. And hell, I've won DDR tournaments in 4 different states, believe it or not. And there's a website called Aaron in Japan where he has all these pictures from back in the day. So this picture, I was only 17 or 18 years old here. And this is me showing my AAA score, getting a song on hard difficulty with all perfects. This was a very, very difficult thing to do. So I got my mug on a whole bunch of different songs where I scored AAAs. And this isn't all of them that I had, but I had a bunch. This one here I was really happy about. Man, look how much hair I had, too. It's crazy. Wasn't that long ago. This was 2001, 2002, 2003. Well, more recently, thanks to my friend Desi, he got me into a new rhythm game that came out about a year ago. And this game's called Beat Saber. You may have heard of this game. And instead of stepping on arrows, you've got to cut the blocks to the rhythm of the song. So what you're watching now is me in virtual reality. That's me in the corner. And I use the controllers, which in the game are lightsabers. And you have to cut the blocks in the direction that the arrow shows you. The blue blocks with my right saber, the gray ones with my left. And, well, I won't lie. If you're wondering why I haven't been posting as much in the last couple months, maybe this game has a little bit to do with it. But it's like the most fun thing that exists. And I forgot how I even started talking about this. I think I was talking about, eating and exercise and, my point is you can eat a wider range of food if you get good exercise. So this is definitely a lot of exercise here, believe it or not. Yeah. So this has been a significant chunk of my time lately, and look, man, you got to enjoy life sometimes, right? And after all these games I played when I was younger, I now feel like we've finally made it to the future. This game is so fun. If you ever get virtual reality, you got to get this game. This is really the only thing I do in virtual reality. It's just so dang fun. So, just wanted to share that with you guys. And just for the record, the game Beat Saber has the same gematria as the word number. Just a little observation. You go from one thing to another. Of course, they're related. Let's see. Arcade Addicts Anonymous. Huh. I suppose, not as anonymous anymore as I was just a few minutes ago. Someone said I'm insane. I think that was referring to my Beat Saber skills. Thoughts on marijuana? Well, I mean, they call marijuana a gateway drug. I don't necessarily buy into that. I would call alcohol as much of or more of a gateway drug than marijuana. Marijuana is a tricky thing, actually. To me, it's one of those drugs that open up certain pathways of your brains that the powers that be, so to speak, those with knowledge of this organic matrix, they would rather not have you access those parts of your brain. Because when you're under the influence of drugs, especially certain drugs, you start to question your reality. Things don't feel real. And I've heard this from many other people before, particularly something like acid, where they might trip out or freak out because suddenly it doesn't feel like their world is real. And that's because our brain starts to operate on a different plane. And what we're beginning to recognize in that state of mind is that, maybe what we experience as reality is slightly different. So, marijuana is fine for that. And I think the problem with marijuana, if there is one, is that it does let people fall into complacency. And perhaps I've been guilty of this in the past as well. But I don't think people really fully understand how it affects you. They don't understand that it's not just marijuana. There's different types of marijuana that affect you differently. And some of those types don't affect you in a positive way, I don't believe. So, I'm definitely for legalization of it, as I am with all drugs pretty much. I mean, I don't want to see people using heroin, crack cocaine, methamphetamine, stuff like that. But I think there are drugs that help repair the brain. And you see this mostly in other countries, not so much the U.S., but where they're starting to open clinics. Actually, you are seeing it in the U.S. now with ketamine. Ketamine being offered to people, something I've never taken. I don't know what that feels like, but apparently it's a dissociative drug, which allows people to review their emotions more like from a third-person view. So, I mean, I think marijuana can have a positive effect on people, but I think people are frequently letting it affect them negatively in their lives and might not even realize it. But no knock on it. I mean, I definitely don't think any poorly of anyone who smokes. I'm all for it. And yeah, knock yourselves out. It's probably the most fun of them, right? Yeah, as far as virtual reality, like I would have said that I don't support it either. Um, it's bad enough that we get so much screen time, but hey, if you can use virtual reality to benefit your mind, your body in the way that Beat Saber allows you to, I mean, there's stories of people who have lost like 130 pounds playing that game. Hell, I lost 8 pounds in 3 weeks playing that game. I didn't even know I had 8 pounds to lose. And now I get to eat whatever, or as much food as I want, I should say. So, I'm just not going to get trapped in the black and white, oh, this is good, this is bad. If you get trapped in that type of thinking, you begin to see the world in a very negative light very easily. So I guess that's my take on that. Veganism is a death cult, according to Patty Mills here. Hey, I'm not going that far, but I will say that I don't really support veganism. I'm not really taking part in that argument. I got my own numbers thing going on. Someone asked for myself and Dan Barrett in the same room. Well, we've never been in the same room. I did have a live stream on my original YouTube channel with Dan Barrett. I thought it was a pretty interesting chat. And, I'd like to get in touch with him again sometime. I think, Dan is one of the first Gematria channels I saw, and certainly my work would not have evolved as it has without his work to bounce mine off of, so to speak. Virtual reality, it's weird. I've noticed that even though I've spent a couple hours at a time playing that game, I never felt like it was straining on my eyes. I actually feel like your eyes are looking far away, like you're focusing on something far away. It can't be good for your eyes or better than a screen, but it feels like it is. I don't know how to describe it. I will say, too, though, that ever since I got virtual reality, I started having very, very vivid dreams. This past week, not so much. But it's like it starts rewiring your brain a little bit. And maybe it's just coincidental because it seems like everyone I know in my personal life has also been having very vivid dreams lately. This, to me, points at a grand shift in global consciousness, perhaps, which would be nice. We're always in need of that. But to me, it could be a little bit of virtual reality, And this is true. I think weed does prevent you from dreaming. What actually will help you dream, what I've discovered, is pyramids. And I've promoted these before. If you go to akaida.com, Misaki sells these high-quality pyramids. I have an Organite one. I have a Shungite pyramid. Akaida.com. And this stuff is legit. You put these next to your bedstand, and it will absorb electromagnetic frequencies in the air, whether it's smart meters, cell phone towers, Wi-Fi signals, and essentially it helps reopen your mind's eyes link to the shared consciousness that I believe we pull our dreams from. When they shut off analog television signals in 2009, scientists were able to see more galaxies because the air was not flooded with the electromagnetic waves of analog signals. So we are living in an EMG soup, essentially, and this helps break that apart. So if you want to dream more again, get one of these pyramids. The one with radionics even are even more powerful. And I don't know, maybe I'll get one of those one day, but yeah, I feel like, when it comes to marijuana and, people tend to smoke it at night and then go to sleep, Well, when you don't dream, you kind of lose your connection to that shared consciousness. I've had these vivid dreams. Some of them have been like really fun, really invigorating, and they're kind of energizing. And I feel like I'd be missing out on that if I was smoking more of it. You know what I mean? Sorry, I missed the question about what site. I don't know what site you mean. Oh, Akaida. It's spelled, let me just link it. So, that'll probably do it for this video. Glad I had this little chat with you guys here at the end. I apologize if there was anything worth mentioning or worth seeing early on in the video. I wasn't really paying attention to the chat early on, but it's nice to pop in and see what you guys are asking once in a while. Yeah, I mean, I got my own theories on dreams. It's the idea that maybe your brain is kind of warming itself up for what it needs to do in the real world, processing things it's learned. But as I've been talking about for this whole video, I believe that our existence, our reality is one of shared consciousness. And the fact that we are able to experience organic synchronicities with other people speaks to the fact that we are connected. And I believe that when we're dreaming, that is giving us a little bit more of a window into that connectedness, which is why often, like couples, one person will have a nightmare and the other person will wake up during it. That's not a very rare thing. All right, everyone. Hope you all have a great rest of your weekend. Enjoy your week, your coming week. Don't allow the week to weaken you so that you're not weakened by the weekend. And thanks for watching. Again, please like, share, and subscribe. This might not be the best video to share on your Facebook feed to everybody you know, but if you know people who you feel like you have a lot in common with, who are on similar wavelengths, who question the world that they see, who have an open mind, I hope that my work can be digested and can contribute to their life in some way because, again, this type of knowledge isn't for everybody. It's rejected by many, often violently rejected by many. But for those of you who want to have a better understanding of our world and aren't simply satisfied by the temporal entertainment we get from our media sources, then perhaps numerology is a little spark of divination in your life that gives you that boost, So, thanks to all who jumped in once again. Peace, love, and God bless. See ya!